You used your magic minute, which is historic, during the spending bill debate this week to deliver the longest House floor speech in U.S. history. For anyone who's missed the full 8 hours and 45 minutes, can you tell us tonight what's wrong with this piece of legislation?
Well, great to be with you, Rev. Thanks again for having me on. You know, the one big ugly bill hurts everyday Americans and rewards billionaires. It's the largest attack on health care in American history. More than 17 million people will lose their health care as a result of this one big ugly bill. It will end effectively Medicaid as we know it. Hospitals will close, nursing homes will shut down, community-based health clinics won't be able to operate. And as a result of the fact that so many people will not be able to get access to health care, folks are going to die all across the United States of America. And for those who have private insurance, premiums, copays, and deductibles are likely to go up for millions of Americans. But it also represents the largest cut to supplemental nutritional assistance in American history. Republicans are literally ripping food out of the mouths of hungry children, veterans, and seniors. And all of this, Reverend Sharpton, is being done so that Republicans can award billionaires massive tax breaks as part of an effort to jam their extreme trickle-down economic theory down the throats of the American people and explode the debt by more than $3 trillion.
Now, there are some Democrats right now who are outraged over what President Trump is doing, who are frustrated. Democrats can't do more right now to block him legislatively. What is your message to those critics?
Well, listen, it's incredibly important to note that House Democrats and Senate Democrats were united in our strong and principled opposition against Donald Trump's extreme agenda. The problem that we confront is that Republicans have effectively become a rubber stamp for Donald Trump's ideology and his extremism and have chosen to abandon their role as part of a separate and co-equal branch of government. You know, as members of Congress, we don't work for Donald Trump. We don't work for J.D. Vance. We don't work for Elon Musk. We work for the American people. That's why, as House Democrats, our determination was we're going to stand up for the health care of the American people, stand up for veterans and farmers, everyday Americans, the children, the older Americans, the people with disabilities, who are all going to be hurt by this one big ugly bill. And the problem that we confront in the legislative branch right now is that Republicans have basically conducted themselves like they're a wholly owned subsidiary of Trump Incorporated, not independently elected folks who are supposed to be serving the best interests of the American people.
Now, we're following breaking news this weekend out of Texas Hill Country. Governor Abbott held a news conference just in the last hour. Authorities are searching for more than 24 people missing from a girls' summer camp after flash floods that left at least 32 people dead. Authorities are being questioned over whether the camp had sufficient warning about the severe weather. The incident comes as the Trump administration is making deep cuts to weather forecasting services and openly discussing shifting more of the burden for disaster recovery from FEMA to state governments. How concerned are you in light of this? And we're all praying for the families, but how concerned are you in light of this with the country's readiness for extreme weather right now headed into the hurricane season?
Such a very shocking and sad tragedy. And our thoughts and prayers, of course, go out to all of the families of those who have been lost, of those who are still missing. And we also want to express our thanks and appreciation for the first responders who are right now in the midst of a search and rescue operation. I think we are going to have to figure out what happened, why did it happen, and how do we prevent this type of tragedy from ever happening again. And so the question of readiness is certainly something that Congress should be able to explore in a bipartisan way, particularly as we head into a summer where we can expect intensifying extreme weather events hitting massive parts of the United States of America.
What's important here, this is a rude awakening for Trump, because he has rudely awoken the people with his insane cuts. Guys, we need to really understand that Donald has given Democrats, should they choose to accept it, the messaging for the midterms and even for 2028. Right now, hopefully Speaker one day, Leader Jeffries right now needs to do two things. One, he needs to get off his behind and endorse Mamdani in New York to be a good sport in the Democratic Party and endorse the Democratic nominee overwhelmingly chosen by the working and middle class people of New York. And two, he needs to listen and say, we are the party of Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. Trump is cutting it, not just theoretically. He's already made huge cuts to Medicaid. He is the person of cuts and of having poor and working and middle class people starve on the street. And we are the party that will not only stop those cuts, but now's the time to go on offense and say, improve those programs, strengthen those programs. We are going to be the anti-Donald Trump. And here is what we can do. This expands on it.
We made promises, and it's really promises made, promises kept, and we've kept them. This is a triumph of democracy on the birthday of democracy. And I have to say that the people are happy. They're happy.
President Trump taking a bit of a victory lap after the Republican-controlled Congress narrowly passed his one big, beautiful bill. And while Americans may benefit from certain parts of the legislation in the short term, it may be years before they feel the pain from some of its more controversial provisions. Joining us now is Congresswoman Sheila Sherfilis McCormick, Democrat from Florida. Representative, thanks for being with us. How are you thinking about communicating the impact of this new law to your constituents there in Florida?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I think at the end of the day, there are some good things in this bill. However, they are temporary and they all expire in 2028. And the truth is, the damage that's being done in this bill is not just devastating, but it is permanent, especially when we're looking at people who are on Medicaid, people who are on SNAP. These are our most vulnerable, and they will suffer horrifically because of this. And some of them will die. And that's the reality of it. And I think the more and more we talk to people, they're feeling that. There was already some anxiety here that was present just because of the way this administration has been conducting itself, especially being in Florida, where you see the ICE raids, you see the fear, the apprehension. And this bill was just another layer of fear and apprehension. So I think the cumulative effect of this bill and what we've been seeing for the past months speaks for itself. And compounding that with the alligator Alcatraz, it just makes everybody very weary. And we've been doing several town halls throughout all of South Florida, making over 100 stops. And we keep hearing and feeling this from the American people on both sides.
The energy that you're finding in the town halls, how do they compare to what we saw maybe within the last year, as we were reporting on, for some of the representatives in congressional districts where they were either in swing districts or they were on the edge for Republicans, and they saw a great uprise of those who were quite concerned about what was happening? Do you expect the same energy? Is that what you're seeing?
I am. And, you know, it started off with the Social Security clawbacks. It talks about how it's being harder for people to dispute some Social Security issues. Then we also saw concerns when it came to Medicaid. We saw concerns when it came to SNAP. And really, especially in Florida, where you're in an area where you have so many people who come to retire, who come to actually live their last days, there's an overwhelming group of people who are coming now who said, hey, I've done everything I was supposed to do, and I attained the American dream, and now it's crumbling right through my fingertips. And that's the vulnerability that I'm seeing from our seniors, from our families who moved to Florida, just from the whole population. And compounded to that, we're finding a lot of immigrants or people who are married to immigrants, people who came to the country lawfully through TPS, or humanitarian parole, who feel this increased anxiety. And now remember, in Florida, we have a huge immigrant population. So that's going to be your doctor, your nurse, your neighbor, people who we've worked with and loved and adored for more than 15 years in our country, who are now anxious anxious, who are now being arrested, slammed to the floor. And these are good people who you've known for a long time. So there's an increased anxiety all over on all sides and from every group, not just from Haitian people, Venezuelans, Cubans, but from everybody who's watching this and saying, wow, have we become this country now where everyone is being scared, where people see a lack of dignity and compassion? I think that's a bigger thing. But then that vulnerability always kicks in at the end of the day. Am I going to be okay? Is my family going to be okay? Will my benefits be present for me when I need them?
Some Republicans and some moderates are arguing that they are not cutting Medicaid and not cutting SNAP benefits. They're just adding requirements to qualify for them. And by doing that, they're cutting waste, fraud, and abuse. And in a discussion I had with a social worker, they said, yes, that might be beneficial to reduce fraud because of requirements not being needed at the moment for some benefits that are given to constituents. What's your response?
Well, it's not true. I worked in healthcare for over 20 years before I came to Congress. And one of the things that we saw is when you increase red tape without having the funding for implementation of that, it actually equals a system that doesn't work for the people. So right now, Medicaid recipients are renewing or re-verifying once a year. Now we're moving that to twice a year, every 6 months. But there's no money being allocated to make sure that the systems in place that actually do the verification have the amount of people or the funding to do it. So what's going to cause is a lot of people to be delayed. What does the delay equal? We have a lot of babies who are on oxygen. We have a lot of people who have different needs that they pay for what they need every single day. So when they try to go to the doctor, when they try to get oxygen for that baby and their application's being delayed, or they're not covered anymore because there's such a delay, that child will not get oxygen. That's the reality. And that's what I'm talking about when we talk about devastating effects that are permanent. When that child doesn't get that oxygen, what happens? When that patient doesn't get a nurse, what happens? If there's no funds being allocated at the same time of these new requirements, what that causes is a deprivation of their health care. And that's the reality. So if you want to deal with fraud and abuse, let's sit down and talk about how do you actually implement it while mitigating any harm. There's no mitigation process. It's just let's cut, let's make it more difficult. And we know for certain that there will be over 12 million people who are going to be kicked off.
So guys, it really does need to be said. Democrats have this opportunity to seize this. This is more concrete. A lot of people, and it could be that they just forgot about it because it happened right at the end, the very end of Trump's first presidency, and 4 years had gone by, and they forgot / didn't care / other issues replaced J6 and all of that. That should have been enough to end Trump forever. It should have been. The voters were wrong. But the voters had other concerns, right? And affordability, things like that. Democrats need to realize that you can tie in Donald Trump as a threat to American society by focusing in on the economic issues. Remember this. Even MAGA, when you ask them, what are you nostalgic for? Yeah, a lot of it, honestly, racism, hatred of women, etc. But they're nostalgic for a time that was built by the New Deal. They're nostalgic for left-wing policy from the Democratic Party. That's what they really miss. And it's up to the Democrats to give it to them again.